Preppers are the new enemy, and they'll be coming for us soon. Ever since last year, when millions of people finally woke up to the idea of preparedness, preppers have moved closer and closer to being identified as a potential threat. And now with a new report from the Department of Homeland Security, as well as an article from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, I can tell you right now that the new threat on the horizon is you. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're talking about how preppers are the new enemy. On August 13th, 2021, the Department of Homeland Security released an NTAS advisory that domestic extremism was a top priority level threat here in the United States of America. And domestic extremism is actually you, because we're being put into that group. And here's why. There's a lot of information out there right now, according to this DHS document, as well as an article from the Center for Strategic and International Studies that I want to talk to you about. I'm going to give you the pertinent details from both of those documents so that we can think about how we need to prepare for this here in the future. Because the demonization of preppers is on the way, okay? And if you've ever been labeled an extremist, then hit the subscribe button below, because we're going to have to keep together on this one, and we're going to have to talk about it more as things get tighter and tighter. And I'm going to use certain verbiage or stay away from certain words in this video in order to make sure the message gets out as far as it possibly can. And if you don't mind helping me out, please share this video so that we can talk to other people in the preparedness community and warn them about what's really happening, okay? Many people have reported on this new DHS NTAS advisory, but not many people have talked about the article that ties it all together from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. So let's talk about both of those things now, okay? I don't often ask people to share things, but in this situation, I think it's very important because the hammer is coming down. We've seen all the ducks being lined up in a row and being ready for any plan to be executed that needs to happen. And as preppers, we need to be very aware of the fact that we're being labeled in a certain way that doesn't bode well for us in the future, okay? So, first and foremost, the NTAS details. And like I said, I'm not going to tell you what NTAS is, but I will link both of the things we're going to discuss here in the description as well as the pinned comment below, so that way you guys can check them out for yourself and get all the additional information and details that you need directly from the source, so you're not just taking my word for it, okay? Always do your own research. But here's what it says in there that I thought was pertinent and important that you needed to know about, okay? Here's one of the details in the NTAS, okay, the advisory. Anti-government, anti-authority extremists remain a priority threat. Extremists may seek to exploit new variants, okay, you understand what I'm trying to say here, by viewing potential lockdowns as a justification to retaliate. And yes, I'm abbreviating what's being said there because I want you guys to get the information exactly how it needs to be digested, and I need to avoid certain verbiage in order to get this message out further, okay? So, that's one of the details within the report. Understand what that means. Now, moving on from there. Ideologically motivated extremists derive inspiration and operational guidance via information consumption from certain online communities. Interesting, isn't it? We often refer to ourselves here in the prepper community as a community, and we're definitely online in many ways, especially if you're watching this video right now. So keep that in mind, because we're going to go into the next part. Law enforcement is concerned that broader sharing of false narratives and conspiracy theories will gain mainstream traction. Okay? And what that means is that once those things gain mainstream traction, people will use that as justification to act out on that traction in the sense of saying that, this is real and we have to do something about it. That's what they're trying to say there. So understand that those three details I pulled out of the report are not the entire body. But they're the three things that I thought were most relevant to being a prepper and how we're going to be labeled and lumped in with groups of extremists here in the very near future if we haven't already been. Oh, wait! We already have been, okay? So, the day before this report came out, great timing. Not sure how they figure all these things out like they do. But the day before this report came out, August 12th, 2021, the Center for Strategic and International Studies published an article called Examining Extremism, the Militia Movement. Interesting. Okay, well, let's talk about it. What is the information in there that you need to be aware of as well? It's a very long article. Like I said, I'll link it below so you can read it for yourself. But here's the parts of it that I think are very important for you to understand and be aware of, okay? Militias are typically built around preparation, for an existential threat in order to protect families and communities. Okay? Yes. Is that abbreviated? It is. Are there certain words I left out? Yes, because pretty much have to at this point in order to get this out there. But understand that that is exactly what they think of when it comes to militias. They are typically built around the idea of preparation for an existential threat, which, I don't know, it's just something that, people do sometimes. Like if you live in Florida and there's an existential threat of a possible hurricane coming, you might prepare for it. But how do we know they really mean preppers when, that's such a broad spectrum? Let's move into the next part of the article that you might find interesting. Many militia members can be described as survivalists or armed doomsday preppers. They literally use the word preppers in the article. Armed ones at that. And, do we support the Second Amendment around here? Yeah. And are we armed in the sense of self-defense? Of course we are. So, isn't it interesting that these groups are being all tied together under one large umbrella known as domestic extremism, which there's another word missing from that equation, but you'll figure it out, I guarantee it. And another thing that's interesting is that they're even lumping certain law enforcement agencies into this whole situation. Well, what do you mean by that, Magic? Well, here's what I'll tell you, is that militias have often supported certain law enforcement groups because part of their doctrine is the idea of supporting law and order in many ways, right? That's the reason behind the militia, is in order to maintain order during chaos, okay? So they've even lumped in Customs and Border Protection into that equation, as saying that some of these law enforcement agencies are even possibly a threat themselves, due to their ability to go rogue and the support they already receive from these militia groups. So it's not just preppers, it's not just citizens. It's starting to become very interesting how they are casting this extremely wide net. And I'm sure a lot of you know that this goes back to a certain day in January of 2021 that has pushed a lot of this really far into the void. So, here's one more part of this that you need to understand, because, Magic, first you're talking about, domestic extremism, okay, and anti-government, anti-authority extremists and stuff like that, and the threat level, because we're within the period of time that's been 20 years since a certain event, okay, okay, but then you're talking about militias. So, I don't understand. Aren't they two separate things? How did this come together, Magic? And I don't know why I'm talking to the third person, but I'm having a good time with it. Here's the last part of the article I want you to know about. Militia extremists pose a large and escalating threat in the USA driven by perceived existential threats. Now do you understand how all this comes together? They are taking out the label maker and slapping it on whatever they think is important for them to be very concerned about. And you and I might be people who want to be self-reliant, prepared for emergencies, and able to take care of ourselves, and generally want to be left alone. But we might not be left alone much longer, because it doesn't matter if you associate with these extremist groups, it doesn't matter if you associate with militias, it doesn't matter even if you're pro 2A or not. If you're prepared and you're a prepper, you're somebody who wants to survive during an emergency and have a little bit extra on hand, and have some extra skills, and maybe have a network or a community that you can rely on, you're under this umbrella now. This threat they're talking about is you. It's me. It's everybody who wants to be prepared and doesn't want to have to rely on the government. And here's where we are. This is where we're going. So, I wanted to get this message out because yes, many people have discussed what the Department of Homeland Security put out recently in their NTAS advisory. But not many people have connected it to this article from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And when you take the two together, you realize exactly how this is going. And we all should be aware of it, because there's no better time than to prepare than now. And I said that wrong, and that's okay, because that's where we're at this point. I can't even talk right because of how ridiculous everything is becoming. But we have each other. You have me, I have all of you, and that's what we have to continue. Build the community, build the network, stay in communication, and do what we can to be as best prepared as possible. We're generally good people that just want to be left alone and don't want to rely on anybody else if something bad happens. But I have a feeling being left alone isn't going to be an option for much longer. So, just wanted to bring this to your attention. Comment below, let me know your thoughts on what's happening out there. Let me know your thoughts on the labeling and what direction that's going to take us in. If you have anything else to add to the conversation, please do, so we can talk about it and we can have a better understanding of where everybody is in the sense of their preparedness. But this is important, and like I said, I don't ask for much, but if you could share this message, I would appreciate it, because this is a tough spot we're in, and we're heading in a bad direction. And with all the things going on right now around the world and other parts of the world, where things are falling apart and where actual threats have definitely come from in the past, it's interesting that the top priority level is still you. It's still me. It's still us. So, without anything else to say about how preppers are the new enemy, that's going to be it for Magic Prep.